and welcome to Lesson 4, the Social Learning Theory. In this session we're going to look at the social learning theory, including concepts of imitation, modelling, identification. You'll need to know Bandura's work, and we'll talk about this, as well as be able to evaluate the research and the theory. History and context. So, it developed out of a dissatisfaction with the learning approach, which consists, if you remember, of operant and classical conditioning. Albert Bandura believed that new behaviour could be learned just by observing others, without that direct reinforcement seen by Skinner or association seen by Pavlov. Instead, we develop hypotheses by observing others about the consequences of certain behaviour. So if you watch someone behave in a particular way, you develop hypotheses about what will happen if you behave in that way too. So, the social learning theory. According to social learning theory, we don't just learn from reward and punishment. Observation and imitation are key to learning. And we call people we observe and imitate models, and that's called modelling. The modelling is more likely to occur if the child identifies with the model in some way, for example, if they're of similar age or sex. And behaviour that brings reward to the role model is more likely to be imitated. So we see someone else being rewarded for their behaviour and we copy it. Mediation processes. Bandura proposed that there were internal mediation processes, and in Bandura's work we can see the origins perhaps of the cognitive approach. This allows us to predict the probable consequences of behaviour in terms of expectancies. What is the likelihood that if I copy the behaviour I will get the same rewards? If the expectation of positive consequences outweigh the negative, we are likely to imitate the behaviour. Bandura proposed that the mediation processes included things like attention, retention, reproduction and motivation. What he's saying is we have to actually be aware of the behaviour and pay attention to it. The behaviour must be remembered. Reproduction, we must have the physical ability to reproduce the behaviour, and the motivation, will desire to perform the behaviour, i.e. if we believe we'll be rewarded and that those rewards will outweigh the costs. This is a model of how it works. Input from the environment, mediation processes, something like attention, retention, and output behaviour. So, Bandura's study. In condition 1, the child is brought to a room with paper and crayons, and they sit there playing, drawing, when an adult enters an adjacent room that the child can see through a window. The adult then attacks the Bobo doll, which is this thing here, for 10 minutes before this stage ends. In condition 2, the child draws an adult in the adjacent room is seen playing with a construction toy. And the third condition involved control with a child and no adult role model. No adult model. So, violent adult model, peaceful adult model, no adult model. Let's see what happens, shall we? Stage 2 of the experiment. Children were then brought into a room with attractive toys, but swiftly told that they were not for them, and then taken to the room that the adult was in earlier with the Bobo doll. Their behaviour was recorded via secret hidden cameras. The children who observed the aggressive model displayed more violent behaviours aimed at the Bobo doll than the other two conditions. Bandura concluded from this that merely by observing behaviour such as violence, we increase the chance that we'll imitate ourselves. Interestingly, the kids come up with novel ways to attack the Bobo doll. In one case, there was a gun present in the room, and a child picked up the gun and proceeded to pistol whip the Bobo doll, showing that we can learn to generalize behaviors and innovate as well. So, evaluation of social learning theory. Strengths. Social learning theory can explain criminal behavior if you are raised in an environment in which criminal behavior seems to be rewarded, people around you are committing it, you admire them, you identify with them, or they are rewarded for it, you are more likely to imitate the behavior. Ulrich found in a review of the literature that adolescent criminality was linked strongly to imitation of peers. Fox and Bailenson found evidence for using computer-generated virtual humans. Participants viewing similar-looking virtual humans exercised more in the week following the study, suggesting that we can identify even with virtual models. Weaknesses: Causality, Seigel and McCormick argue that young people with deviant attitudes may actually seek out other young people with deviant attitudes. So it's not that they're copying and learning those behaviors, they're self-selecting to be around people who already have those behaviors because they have them too. An example would be a smoker who joins another group of people who smoke. That obviously they're going to seek out people who share their habit. Complexity ignores the role of genetic predispositions. Many things can influence behavior, making it difficult to investigate, not just observation, imitation. There are several practical applications, such as in advertising. The inclusion of the Lynx advert, for example, of an everyman. This is a skinny guy who looks like your average Joe, who's suddenly flocked and swarmed by beautiful women. The reward is the beautiful women, vicarious reinforcement, identification, he looks just like me, and so forth. Ansager et al. 2006 found that perceived similarity to a model in anti-alcohol advertisement was positively related to the message's effectiveness. So this suggests we can actually use SLT to bring down public ills such as drink driving. So what are the contributions to psychology? Has been used to explain addiction, adolescent smoking for example, gender development, identification is an important part, and reward. If your boy acts like a boy and you reward him for it, he may behave more boyish. Attachment and child development, and many, many more. There are more evaluations in your guide notes. Okay, using your knowledge of social learning theory, answer the following question. This is a question I just want to take you through. I've written the answer to it, but I wanted to take you through it to give you a sense of how you might answer this. So Mr. Valdini is a high school teacher. He notices some children raise his hand in class and others call out answers, which ruins the lessons for others, as I'm sure you'll agree. How might Mr. Valdini use vicarious reinforcement to change the behaviour of these children? Explain your answer. Well, positive reinforcement. This is demonstrated by praising those who raise their hand. So it's a 4-mark question. We can split it into 2 because they want us to talk about positive reinforcement and punishment. So the first thing I'm going to do is define it, then I'm going to link it. Define and link. For 2 marks, define and link. Okay, so I'm going to praise those children who raise their hand in front of their peers. This means that the other children may vicariously learn. Sorry, that's supposed to say learn vicariously, and also want to receive praise. and start acting appropriately as a result. Punishment might be demonstrated by giving the children who call out detention in front of everyone in the class. So the key phrase here is in front of everyone else. If you don't include that, which I know from the scenario it feels like a given, you may not get the marks. This means that other children may learn vicariously that they do not want detention and therefore will avoid punishment. Sorry, this is the speech-to-text software messing me around. So, cooling out answers. Essentially what's happening here is positive reinforcement, what is the example? Punishment, what is the example? 4 marks in total. We'll do some more practice questions in class. But here is one that I would like you to answer on your own. Read the item and then answer the question that follows. A psychologist carried out a study of social learning. As part of the procedure, he showed children aged 4 to 5 a film of a 4-year-old boy stroking a puppy. Whilst the children watched the film, the psychologist commented on how kind the boy was. After the children had watched the film, the psychologist brought a puppy into the room and watched to see how the children behaved. Take it apart. There are 6 marks available here, so you need to identify 6 concepts from the STEM. Thank you very much for your time this lesson. If you have any questions, as always, come and let me know. This has been the Social Learning Theory.